When you finally begin to wake up, something extraordinary happens. Not outside you, but within. The world that once felt so solid, predictable, and unquestionable begins to shimmer like a dream. You start to sense that there's more to existence than what you were taught to believe. You begin to see that what most people call reality is just a shared agreement, a collective illusion held together by stories, identities, and fears. And when that veil slips, when the game becomes visible, a profound shift takes place. You no longer move through life half asleep. You see, and that seeing changes everything. At first, the urge to share what you've found feels overwhelming. You want to tell everyone about it, how the world isn't as it seems, how love is not an emotion but the ground of all being, how freedom is not something to chase but to remember. You want to shake people awake, to say, "Don't you see? It's all right here." But very quickly, you learn something humbling, that most people are not ready to hear it. Not because they are ignorant or lost, but because certain truths cannot be transferred through words. They can only be realized through experience. You could describe the entire ocean to someone who's never seen water, but they would still have no idea what it feels like to float, to sink, to be held by its vastness. That's the first thing you must never share, your direct experience of awakening itself. It's too sacred, too personal, too infinite to be contained in language. When you try to express it, it becomes distorted, reduced to concepts that others will interpret through their own limited understanding. You'll see their eyes glaze over or their minds start to analyze, categorize, compare. What was pure and alive within you begins to feel drained when translated into words. It's like trying to pour the ocean into a teacup. No matter how carefully you pour, most of it will spill. So instead of describing it, you begin to embody it. You walk with quiet presence. You let your being speak louder than your explanations. The second thing to keep sacred is the exact methods or paths that led you there. The world is full of seekers, and many will want to know, how did you do it? What meditation? What practice? What book? But the truth is, your path was customized by the universe for you. The combination of challenges, insights, breakdowns, and breakthroughs that shaped your awakening is uniquely yours. If you hand someone your personal map, they might follow it straight into confusion or despair because it wasn't written for their terrain. Real awakening cannot be copied. It must be lived. So instead of giving people instructions, offer them permission. Permission to trust their own unfolding, to follow their intuition, to listen to the whispers of their own soul. The third thing you must never share is your insights into the void, the deep, silent nothingness you've glimpsed beyond form. When you speak of emptiness, of dissolving into the infinite, of losing the I, people who haven't tasted that depth may mistake it for nihilism or madness. They may hear hopelessness where you've found liberation. They may think you've lost something, when in truth, you've lost nothing but illusion. This misunderstanding can isolate you, but it can also teach you compassion. You realize that silence is safer than argument. The void doesn't need defending. The truth doesn't require convincing. When you stop trying to explain the void, you begin to radiate its peace. The fourth thing to hold close is your visions or mystical experiences. Those moments when you felt divine guidance, when synchronicities multiplied, when you sensed your connection to something vast and unseen. These are sacred communications between your soul and the universe. To share them too soon, especially with people who live entirely in logic and skepticism, is to invite dismissal, mockery, or doubt, which can weaken your trust in what you know to be real. The sacred must be protected, not to hide it, but to allow it to grow quietly within you. Just as you wouldn't expose a seedling to harsh wind before its roots take hold, you don't expose your mystical insights until they've matured into grounded wisdom. The fifth thing to keep within is your realization of your own freedom. When you awaken, you see that you are not bound by any identity, belief, or story. You are infinite consciousness experiencing itself through a temporary form. You become aware that life itself is playing, dreaming, evolving through you as you. But to speak that aloud to those still attached to the game can sound arrogant or detached. They might hear you saying you're better or above them, when in truth you simply see that there is no them, only one consciousness wearing many masks. So instead of proclaiming your freedom, you live it. You move through the world lightly, without attachment, without the need to convince. You become an example of effortless being, and your very presence becomes the teaching. This is the paradox of awakening. As you rise higher in consciousness, you speak less. The more you understand, the less you need to explain. You begin to sense that silence carries a wisdom that words can only dilute. You realize that being misunderstood is part of the journey and that the truth doesn't need to be advertised. It reveals itself naturally to those who are ready. In this way, your silence becomes your offering. But don't mistake silence for withdrawal or isolation. True silence is alive. It's not the absence of communication, but the presence of deep awareness. When you sit in silence, you're not withholding. You're listening. You're tuning in to the quiet rhythm of the divine, which speaks in subtleties, in the sway of trees, in the breath of wind, in the moments between thoughts. The more you listen, the more you realize that the entire universe is whispering guidance. You stop seeking gurus because you see that life itself is the teacher. You'll also notice that your relationships begin to change. Some people will drift away, confused by your calmness, your lack of urgency, your refusal to engage in drama. Others will be drawn to you, sensing your peace even if they can't name it. You become magnetic, not because you try to attract, but because your energy is balanced, whole, and unbothered. This is what it means to be spiritually irresistible. You no longer need to prove or preach. You simply are. And when others ask, "What happened to you? Why do you seem so different?" you smile. You know that no explanation would do justice to the mystery. You let your stillness speak. You let your laughter be your sermon. You let your presence be the living proof that awakening isn't about escaping the world. It's about seeing through it and loving it all the same. So, chosen one, remember this. Not everything you discover is meant to be shared. Some truths are meant to be embodied. The deepest wisdom doesn't echo through words. It radiates through your energy, your choices, your peace. You become a walking silence, a living transmission of the divine. You are no longer trying to describe the truth, you are becoming it.